I had been searching for a fresh start when I finally arrived in the city. Rent prices were steep, so I used a roommate matching service to find an affordable place. That's how I ended up in a shared apartment with 3 strangers: Sophie, Adam, and Mara. From the moment I met them, something felt off. Maybe it was the way they stared a little too long, or the way their conversations would abruptly stop when I entered the room. My gut told me something wasn't right, but I ignored it. I needed this place. The unease never faded. If anything, it grew. I started noticing little things. My door, which I always locked, would sometimes be slightly ajar when I got home. My food in the fridge would be rearranged. Once, I found my journal on the coffee table, even though I never left it out of my room. Then there were the cameras. Not just the regular security cameras in the building, but tiny, discreet ones, tucked into corners, hidden among the bookshelves, positioned near the hallway mirror. Someone had placed them there carefully, deliberately. I tried to keep my distance, but my silence seemed to provoke them. Mara, in particular, grew hostile. One evening, I grabbed a towel from the common bathroom in an emergency, not realizing it was hers. When she found out, she exploded. Her rage felt disproportionate, personal, like she had been waiting for a reason to lash out. Things escalated after that. I'd hear them whispering late at night, my name slipping between hushed tones. When I entered a room, their conversation would die, replaced by knowing smirks. Sophie started writing cryptic messages on the fogged-up bathroom mirror, phrases that made no sense to me but sent a shiver down my spine. Mara had a dog, a massive, intimidating creature that she started letting wander into my room uninvited. She would watch me as the animal sniffed around, her lips curling in amusement. She knew I was uncomfortable. She enjoyed it. Then there was the night Adam took a picture of me. I caught him lowering his phone just as I looked up. "Just for the memories," he said with a grin. My skin crawled. I began to avoid them, retreating to my room as much as possible. That only seemed to make them angry. One night as I lay in bed, I heard them talking about me. "She's alone," Adam murmured. "Nowhere to go." Mara chuckled. "Let's see how long she lasts." I reported them to the property manager. I expected action. Instead, my messages were ignored. No response, no follow-up. It was like no one cared, or worse, like no one wanted to get involved. I knew then, I had to leave. I packed my bags in secret, knowing that if they realized what I was doing, they might try to stop me. I didn't have much time. I could feel their eyes on me, watching, waiting. Then, the night before I planned to leave, something happened. Something I can't forget. I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. Not much, just an inch. Just enough to see the dim hallway light. I held my breath. My pulse pounded in my ears. A shadow shifted beyond the doorway. Someone was there. Standing. Watching. Minutes passed. They never came in, never moved. Just stood there, the door cracked open, the darkness pressing in. Then a whisper. Right outside my room. "We see you." My blood turned to ice. I grabbed the nearest object, a lamp from my nightstand, and yanked the door open. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I wasn't imagining it. I knew I wasn't. I spent the rest of the night sitting against my locked door, gripping the lamp like a weapon. Sleep never came. The next morning, I found something under my bed. A single scrap of fabric. Torn from a t-shirt. It wasn't mine. That was it. I was done. I shoved the last of my belongings into a duffel bag and rushed to the leasing office. Miraculously, my request for a new room had been approved overnight. Too easy. Too fast. They wanted me gone. I didn't wait. I grabbed the keys to my new unit and left without looking back. As I stepped outside, I glanced up at my old window one last time. They were there. All 3 of them. Standing by the glass. Watching. Smiling. I still don't know what they wanted from me. I don't know what their game was. And it was best I didn't stick around to find out. I arrived in the small town just as the first frost settled over the streets. My new home was an old boarding house, its once grand facade now faded with time. Rent was cheap, and the location was ideal. I had taken a job at the local library and needed a quiet place to stay. The landlord was a quiet man who rarely spoke, but the handyman, Walter, was different. He was always there. Too present. He knew my name before I even introduced myself. The first time I met him, he was leaning against the front porch rail, watching as I struggled with my suitcase. "You must be Evelyn," he said, his tone casual but his eyes too observant. I chalked it up to small-town hospitality. But Walter made sure I noticed him. Every time I left my unit, he seemed to be lingering nearby. If I walked to the corner store, I'd pass him fixing a fence. If I went for a run, I'd spot him across the street, staring just a second too long. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Just someone doing their job. But then the little things started. One evening, I returned home to find my front door slightly ajar. My stomach clenched. I was sure I had locked it before leaving. But nothing was missing, and nothing seemed out of place, except for one detail. My journal sat on the kitchen table, open to a page I hadn't read in weeks. The next day, I mentioned it to the landlord, but he dismissed it with a wave. "Probably just the wind," he said. "These doors don't close right." Then came the notes. The first one was innocuous, a scrap of paper left on my doorstep. "Let me know if you need anything. W." The second arrived after my sink started leaking. Walter came to fix it while I was at work, and when I returned, I found a folded note on my counter. "Fixed it for you. Noticed you like herbal tea." "I do too. W." I tried to brush it off, but something about it sent a chill down my spine. My tea sat on the top shelf, tucked away in the cabinet. He had to have looked for it. The text started a few days later. "Saw you walking this morning. You should wear a scarf, it's getting cold." I never gave him my number. "Package on your doorstep. Brought it inside for you." I hadn't ordered anything. One night, as I lay in bed, my phone vibrated on my nightstand. A text. "Why don't you ever answer?" That was the moment the fear set in. I went to the landlord again, but he waved me off. "Walter's just helpful," he said. "Been here for years. He wouldn't hurt a fly." I started locking my door religiously, but my unease grew. My things felt. My clothes in the closet slightly askew. My toothbrush damp when I hadn't used it. And always the feeling of being watched. Then one evening I came home late. The street was silent, my breath visible in the frigid air. I climbed the stairs to my unit, fumbled with my keys, and noticed my door was unlocked. I froze. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to turn around and leave. But something inside me, some stubborn part, made me push the door open. The room was dark, but I knew something was wrong. The air felt different, stale, like someone had been inside for too long. Then I saw it. A note on my pillow. "You shouldn't lock your door. Makes things complicated." My stomach twisted. My pulse roared in my ears. I grabbed my coat and ran. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, watching the boarding house from a distance. The windows stared back at me, dark and hollow. The next morning, I called the landlord, my voice shaking. "I'm leaving." He barely reacted. "Shame. Thought you liked it here." I packed in a frenzy, shoving clothes into my suitcase, not caring if I left things behind. I just needed to get out. As I zipped the bag, I heard it. A soft knock on the door. I went still. Another knock. "Evelyn." Walter's voice. "But, too calm. I heard you were leaving. Thought we could talk." I didn't move. I barely breathed. The doorknob twisted. But, a long pause. Then, the sound of his footsteps retreating. I waited for what felt like hours before I finally opened the door, heart pounding. The hallway was empty. But on the floor, just outside my door, was a small object. A key. My key. I left that night and never looked back. Months later, I got a message from an unknown number. "I miss seeing you around. Hope you're staying warm." No name. No signature. But I didn't need one. I deleted it and changed my number. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I still feel it. That lingering presence. Watching. Waiting. And I wonder, how long before he finds me again? The night air was thick and heavy as I stepped off the last train at Belmere Station. The streets were nearly empty, and a hush settled over the small town, save for the distant hum of a passing car. I wrapped my coat tighter around myself, the dampness of the late autumn night seeping into my bones. I had walked home from the station 100 times before. But tonight felt different. At first, it was just a presence, a sense of being watched. I dismissed it as paranoia, an overactive imagination playing tricks on me. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. A shadow shifting under the dim glow of the street lamp. A man. He was tall, older, with graying hair and an unkempt jacket. He strolled closer, his pace casual, his hands stuffed deep into his pockets. "Evening," he said, his voice calm but intrusive. I quickened my steps. "Good night," I muttered, keeping my gaze straight ahead. I hoped he would take the hint and move on. But he didn't. He matched my pace. "You live around here?" I didn't answer. My heartbeat quickened. The shortcut through the park was just up ahead. If I could make it there, I could lose him. "You're awful quiet," he continued. Then, as if sensing my discomfort, he chuckled. "Am I making you uncomfortable?" "Yes," I said, my voice firm but strained. For a moment, he fell silent. Then, abruptly, he stepped ahead of me, walking at a brisk pace as if he had somewhere to be. Relief flooded my chest. Maybe he had just been a lonely old man trying to make conversation. Maybe I had overreacted. Still, I wasn't taking any chances. I ducked into the convenience store at the end of the street. The fluorescent lights were harsh, illuminating the cramped aisles stocked with bags of chips and canned goods. I lingered near the counter, pretending to browse the energy drinks, giving myself time to breathe. After about 15 minutes, I peered through the glass doors. Nothing. The man was gone. I exhaled sharply, shook off the lingering anxiety, and stepped back onto the street. The houses became sparser as I moved closer to my neighborhood. It was quieter here, isolated. A single street lamp flickered, casting long, distorted shadows along the pavement. Then I heard it. Footsteps. My stomach dropped. The sound wasn't distant. It was close. Rapid. Someone was running. Before I could turn, the footsteps were right behind me. My breath hitched. Then the voice. "Hey, wait up." My blood ran cold. It was him. Every instinct screamed at me to run. But I fought the urge. I had seen what happened to people who ran. Predators chased runners. "Why are you ignoring me?" he asked, his tone darkening. He was closer now, just a few feet behind me. I clenched my fists, my mind racing. Almost home. Just a few more streets. Then he changed direction. "I live just down here," he said casually, pointing to an alleyway between two houses. "Come on, we can talk." My pulse pounded in my ears. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to keep moving, to get inside, to get away. I picked up my pace. Then he lunged. I saw his hand move toward my waist, fingers reaching. I twisted away just in time, my shoulders slamming into the metal fence lining the sidewalk. I gasped, pain jolting through my arm. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice raw. "Back off." His expression darkened. His lips curled in frustration. For a second, I thought he was going to try again. But instead, he took a step back. His face contorted into something between anger and amusement. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel and stormed off in the opposite direction, completely opposite to where he claimed to live. My breath came in short, frantic bursts. I stumbled backward, my hand gripping the cold metal of the fence. I didn't move until he was gone from sight. Then, without thinking, I sprinted the final stretch home, my keys trembling in my hands as I jammed them into the lock. The door clicked shut. Finally, I locked every bolt, every chain, then pressed my forehead against the wood, my lungs burning. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. I should call someone. The police? A friend? Before I could decide, a noise made me freeze. A scrape. It was outside. Near the window. My stomach twisted. Slowly I turned, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. The blinds were drawn, but the dim porch light cast a faint glow through the fabric. And behind it, a shadow. Motionless. I didn't breathe. Didn't blink. My fingers inched toward the nearest object, a heavy lamp on the side table. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the shadow shifted. Disappeared. Silence. I remained frozen. Seconds passed. A minute. Then two. Slowly, I crept forward, every nerve in my body screaming at me to stop. With trembling hands, I lifted the edge of the curtain. Nothing. The porch was empty. My head throbbed. My vision blurred with exhaustion. Had he really been there, or was my mind playing tricks on me? I knew I wasn't imagining it. My fingers hovered over my phone. I needed to tell someone. But what would I even say? That a strange man had followed me? That I thought he might still be out there? Would they even believe me? Would they do anything? Finally, I called my brother. The second he answered, I broke down. "Stay inside," he said firmly. "I'm coming over." I barely slept that night. Every creak, every gust of wind sent my nerves into overdrive. My brother arrived within 20 minutes, checking every window and door, making sure everything was locked. He stayed on the couch, keeping watch until the morning light finally seeped through the blinds. By sunrise, it almost felt like a bad dream. Almost. But as I opened the front door to let my brother out, my breath caught in my throat. Sitting on the doorstep was a single object. A key. Rusted. Not mine.